Okay, today's the day. We've got it off of the wheel cribs. All right, so we got it back on the ground. We pretty much went as far as we can go. Put it in the fuel system and all that. Really, at this point, all we got to do is just tidy it up and finish hooking up the lines here on the front end. So what I'm gonna do for now is we put it back on the ground, and now we're gonna go ahead and start disassembling the factory supercharger so that we can start getting the Whipple installed. And then we'll get their fuel lines and all that ran to the new fuel rails and all that. So so far what I've done is, before I put it on the ground, is I went ahead and drained the radiator. We drained this down. I just actually pumped that down with just a little hand pump that I have, so there's a little bit still residual down the bottom. I started taking out some of this, unhooking the wires and whatnot. I really haven't gotten too far, and then basically all I'm gonna do is just follow the instructions here as Whipple has it laid out. So really, I mean, I guess if there's any significant thing I find as I'm going through this, I mean, so far it's been pretty straightforward. I'll let you know, and I'll probably just stop periodically and just, you know, kind of give you, you know, a little bit of what we've done so far with the disassembly, and then, you know, finally getting the supercharger off of it. But that's kind of where we're at, and we're just moving forward. All right, quick update. Sorry about all the equipment noise in the background, but we're just gonna do it real quick. We got everything basically disconnected from the factory supercharger. We've got the fuel rails off, so you can kind of see everything's disconnected. It's ready to go. The only thing I have left to do is on the back side, down at the very bottom down here where this bracket is, there's a 10 millimeter nut down there that you got to get off in order to free this up so you can get it off the back of the supercharger. So that's the only thing I got left to do, and I thought, hey man, this is a perfect spot to kind of take a break. But not really sure how I'm gonna get down there to get that thing, and it is tucked in there tighter than Dick's hat band. So I guess I'll get that figured out, and then we'll get started putting the new Whipple in. Alright, so I'll give you a brief update where we're at. We got the supercharger out. There really wasn't anything too difficult other than the 10 millimeter bolt on the very back of the supercharger on this wiring harness housing at the bottom. I mean, it's down there, it's super tight. The one on top is easy. And then removing these little ties from the bottom of the supercharger weren't too hard either, but I mean, as far as getting in there and it being tight, that was probably it. So really all I did is use like a trim deal, all right, and pop that wiring harness off the back. So that was pretty simple. And then I came up with this, the jewel. Just used like a right angle drill attachment with a 10 millimeter on it, and then I had these extensions to where that are actually from, I think, from a polishing bonnet or something for my motorcycle. Anyway, I don't know why I had these, but I did use that, fished it down the back side of it, and was able to get that nut off of it. I have a sneaking suspicion that won't be going back on there, at least that one little nut. Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at. I've got a day coming off here pretty quick because I'm doing a little bit just each night, so I'm trying to knock this out. Water neck, all this is going to have to come off. Gotta take the black cover off there. That tab's going to have to be cut off. You know, little nuancy things like that. And then we'll be able to start putting this thing back together. Just note, I did get some help getting that thing off, so I didn't want to have to take the lid off, take the intercooler out, just to basically disassemble it on the car, then pull it off. So my son and my wife actually helped me pop that thing off and get it out of here without damaging anything. So probably when it's time to do the Whipple, obviously you got to take it apart, but I'll be I'll be getting them to help me as well. But that's where we're at. We'll give you an update soon. So kind of where we left off on the cover, we had to trim that top tab off on the cover, and then we popped all this back on. It said to, you know, just wrap some tape around it, even though it's got these little clips around there. So I went ahead and put some tape on it anyway. Yeah, I guess so. So this video is just going to kind of catch you up to where we are right now, which you know, I've done a bunch. So I actually filmed a bunch of the work on my Instagram page, and was doing Instagram lives as I was kind of going through that. So but I was also recording on a GoPro, but I didn't get that footage. So if you want, you might want to jump over there on my Instagram page and watch some of those live feeds of just some of the work we were doing. So I'm gonna kind of walk you through it and kind of catch you up to where we are right now, okay, which is a pretty good ways. Okay, so obviously we started with taking the supercharger off. Pretty straightforward, guys. I mean, as far as the disassembly on top, the hardest part was on the back side here. And you're gonna see there's a black engine wire loom cover on that's that mounts to the back of the supercharger, okay, that that we're taking off. The top bolt is really easy to get to. The bottom bolt is actually down here on the bottom side, probably at the top of the transmission mount. And you're not really going to be able, maybe you can, but you can kind of see down there where it's just kind of dangling right now, all right, where it would be sitting on there, okay? And trying to get anything in there was a near impossible task. I don't know how everybody else had been doing it, and I guess nobody else wanted to show you either, because there's no videos on how somebody done it. Here's what I did. So I had these extensions from where I had like those polishing balls, okay, for like my motorcycle and whatnot. You can go ahead and get them in the rims and all that, so when you're polishing the rims out on your bike. Well, I had these extensions already, okay, and then I had this little drill attachment, right angle drill attachment, and all I did is just put a 10mm nut driver on the end of it, okay? And then what I did, in order to get the angle, because, you know, I mean, that's not perfectly right, so I mean, it's a little bit of an angle, right? So to try to get it turned to where I could get it on there, I was actually fishing this through the back side right here. So I got it down through there, okay, got it past that, and then got it on the bolt and turned it right off. All right, that's how I did it. Is that the easiest way to do it? No clue. All I can tell you is how I did it, and hopefully that just saves you some time as well when you're trying to figure it out. Maybe you've got something like that. I tried to do, you know, like a long extension with a swivel on the end, and I just couldn't get to the angle to get that off. All right. And as far as room, there's like no room back there. I mean, you couldn't get your hand up in there if you wanted to. You know, at least not mine anyway. Okay, so out of the whole thing, that was probably the hardest thing to get done. You know, time-wise. I mean, everything else, I mean, went really quickly. Oh, the other thing was on the fuel lines. So when you're disconnecting the fuel line, here we go. All right, so here is the fuel line that's basically going from one of your fuel rails, from the driver to the passenger side fuel rail, right? And has a little metal lip that it goes to release these, and you kind of look down the end of that, right? So I went and bought a set of those like aluminum disconnect tools, okay? And the problem was I couldn't get the tool in between this fitting and the collar, all right, that was on the fuel line. So you know, a $40 set, and none of them would fit, none of them would work for me, okay? So then I just went and bought this plastic set and thought, hey, worst case scenario, if I got to trim it down, then I can just trim it down and make it work. Well, I didn't. I mean, it popped right on there and popped them right off. So for $5, that fixed my problem there. And I'm just telling you ahead of that because the other ones didn't work for me. Maybe they, and it saved you some time from trying it. Guys, that's probably about it. I mean, other than that, everything else went really, really smooth. I mean, it was pretty simple. Unfortunately, you know, we're gonna have to go back and probably look at those Instagram lives because you got a different water neck that you have to put on here. All right, because you have that long stem that comes off of the factory one, and it wouldn't clear for the new Supercharger. Okay, so I don't know if I've got that sitting around here where I might have put that. I know I got it, just where I set it down at, guys, I don't know. Let's take a quick look. It would be worth showing it to you. Let's see. Here we go. All right, so your factory one has the big stem that comes up here, and obviously there's a clearance issue, right? Also, the height of your bolt deals are different, and you just use the existing gasket that you have. So when you're putting it in, okay, what you're going to replace the long stem with is this right here. All right, and I've got it pushing out on the driver's side, and the reason being is this, there's not a lot of clearance there, and I just want to make sure you guys got enough light. As you can see, there's not a lot of clearance past the Supercharger there. Well, when I was trying to thread this in, this thing would only go in like a quarter of a turn, you know, maybe a half a turn, and then it was really feeling like you were having to force it in there. And I don't know if it was just part of the casting or what was going on, but it was not happy. So I had to take my tap set, basically retap the hole and clean out the threads, and then now it works great. Okay, but it's always those little things, man, that take a little bit of time. But if you don't take the time to do that, then I mean it's going to be a problem down the road. And then you swap out the sensor and then put a plug in here because that's where the sensor was. You move that because obviously with the throttle body it's not going to work, and get all that on there. But that was simple enough. Okay, putting the plate on, you know, and the instructions tell you to leave this loose, and then once you get this far and you go back and read the instructions, there's no clear spot where it's telling you to tighten that up. So I'm going to do that this morning. I'm just going to go ahead and get it tightened up where that's not a problem. There's another pulley that goes right here for it works sort of like a tensioner against this pulley, but it's not, we're not that far along into it. So that's that. I'm basically just trying to condense anything that I can think of, guys, that we're kind of getting into. That kind of gets you basically caught up to where we're at. All right, it's time for an update. Obviously, hey, it's not on there anymore. Well, yes. So I pulled the Supercharger off just a moment ago, and we'll go over that here in just a minute about what we're doing right before we pop it back on. So just to get you guys caught up, I took off the oil catch can to get everything out of the way, to get the hoses and everything cut. The hoses are pretty much done, so you have to cut right here into the flat spot. You wire that out. This is actually going to go up to the Supercharger. The Y out goes over to the other side, which is coming up through here. I haven't cut this one yet because I got the heat shrink, and I'm going to cut that to the length that I want once I button all that up. We put on the new neck. We have that new fitting. We've got all that tight. We tied into this line that's been cut down. This will actually go into the coolant bottle, bottom of the coolant bottle, and then we have to go down here. We have to Y into the bottom of this bottle down here at the bottom, and then it'll tie into the Supercharger as well. The reason why I haven't done this one yet on this side is because I think the hose that I have is a little shorter than I want it. So I'm probably going to go buy a 3/4 inch
heater hose a little bit longer, just that way I can route it the way that I want to do it. I mean, is essentially how it is. I can make the other one work, but there again, I want to do it a little different. So the bracket is on, we have the pulley on, all this is torqued down. There's another pulley that goes on the back side of that I'm probably going to go ahead and put on and just kind of finger tighten, obviously, until we get the belts and all on. And that's essentially got the hoses. Okay, so all of that is done. The reason why I took the supercharger back off was, per the Whipple instructions, they have you putting on the fuel rails prior to putting the supercharger on, and rightly so, because it gets super tight in there. I just took a peek at it to see how close it is. I mean, you could get it done, don't get me wrong, but obviously putting them on first would be ideal. Plus, on top of that, getting the supercharger out of the way, I'm going to pull the fuel lines through and go ahead and put my Y block over here, and then I'm going to go ahead and run what's going to be my 2 fuel lines. I might not put my Y block there. I might actually put it a little short. So I'm going to have to figure that out. I'm going to do that in a minute. Figure out where I'm going to put that Y block, because, I mean, it just needs to be out of the way. But I'm going to feed the line up, which is going to, on this side of the rail, it's going to go over here, connect on this side of the rail, and then the return is basically going to go back around, okay, and then tie into the regulator. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. So right now I've got the supercharger sitting on my table here. I've got a fuel rail that I've already put together. Okay, so the fuel rail, set it down here. We took the clips off our injectors, which are, oh, there's one right there that popped off. So we took the little clip off of our injector. Okay, we installed the clocking bracket, so it's got them all pointing the right direction. Okay, right now they're just sitting in there because the way this goes down into here, I mean, it's just going to basically sandwich this into place and then bolt in. Sensor, plug that off, because that's where your factory fuel line would have connected per one of these fittings. This fitting right here. Obviously, we're not using the factory because we're upgrading the fuel system. So plugging that off, our in will come there, and then our out, our return is coming from that fuel rail. So, all right, guys. So here's what I had to do. I had to pop off the O-rings that came on the injectors. It came with some other ones that are just a little bit thinner, and those popped right into place. Okay, we have 2 little bolts. All right, they go in, put a little bit of blue Loctite on them, and you're off to the races. Now, obviously, this is going to be tighter than Dick's hat band when we go to when we go to put these plugs on. So here's what I've done: is I've just taken and popped out the little plug retainers here. I'll probably pop that one out of the way as well, just to make sure it gives me a little bit of room, wiggle room, when we are popping the connectors back on. So yeah, right now I've got the fuel line pointed out to the side. Same time, of course, this is going to be the return that's going to come out and go down to the pressure regulator. So you can adjust these. It's got, you know, the little adjustable deal. And here's what I want to tell you is that, let's see, I bought a set of little wrenches for these AN fittings. Try to keep from marring them up. Where are they at? There we go. Like this right here. Okay, and they work good. Don't get me wrong. Okay, but you see how you know thick that is, right? And the same thing with this one here. And your typical AN wrench is going to be that. But so if you're trying to get it in a tight spot, let's say right here, it ain't gonna work. That wrench ain't gonna work for you. So I need to go ahead and I'm going to do that this evening. Go ahead and order me a set of wrenches. Not that I need them right now, because I mean I've got all this tight, but I just, you know, who knows? It's going to be one of those in the future things. I'm probably going to need it, so I'm just going to go ahead and grab one. So that way I will have it. And yes, that's where we're at the moment. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do at this point, I'll pause the video. Now it's just running the fuel lines real quick, getting all that buttoned up. That'll probably take me 30 minutes, an hour. I'm trying to think, like, a bunch of this I want to try to pre-make, you know what I'm saying? So once it's on there, it's just connecting the pieces after that, you know. I mean, it's not, you know, running all at once. So but I also think I'm going to do all that with this with the supercharger off, just because it's going to be easier to route everything on around the backside, and that way if I want to zip tie things and kind of clean it up and keep it nice and neat on that backside, I can do it now, right? So that, and then I also need to put on the passenger side rail, and go ahead and get that set up, which is down in the box there, and go ahead and get the injectors and stuff done. But that's where we're at, and I'll give you guys an update here in just a bit. Hi guys, thought I'd give you a quick update. So we got the fuel rails put on there. We've got our ends already set up. On this one, on the passenger side, I went ahead and pre-cut and pre-made the fuel line. I just think that getting in there is going to be kind of tough, and just thought I'd get it pre-made so I don't have to worry about it here in a minute. I actually had to take the fuel rails off because the passenger side actually has a bit of an extension on it to push it out a little bit further to clear the back of the supercharger than on the driver's side. And I actually had those backwards and had to redo those. So note to self, yeah, you might want to definitely keep an eye on that when you're setting it up. So yeah, that's got that. And then on the car side of things, we have we ran all the fuel line up through the bottom here, and I don't have that great a light. I'll probably go back and maybe show you guys. Let's see, let's just do this. Guess I can just edit that out. There they are. Let's get some light. So you can kind of see down there where the fuel lines are coming in, where I've got the Y block already made. So I've got the Y block already made. I've already got my line coming from over there that'll connect to the Y block. And then the line that you see going over here to the regulator, one is the return down at the bottom. This is the return that's going to be set up for the passenger side. And I went ahead and made that as well, just because, as you can see, it's just easier to get everything ran on the back side there without the supercharger on there. So I've got more than enough to run and get that set up, and I wanted the extra anyway, so give me some flexibility when setting everything up. Pretty much I'm at the point now where I need to drop the supercharger back on it, get it bolted down, run the fuel lines. I'll have two that I'll need to cut on this side, which will be our return that'll go from the supercharger down here to the bottom part of the regulator, and then the short fuel line, feed line, that'll go back into the Y block over here on the driver's side, and that'll get all that buttoned up. On the bottom of the bottle here, I was telling you guys that we had a Y into that, and the hose that I had was kind of short from what I wanted to do, so I thought about if I cut it low, it just doesn't leave myself, you know, a long enough piece. And it could be that maybe I used a longer piece there when I shouldn't have, but I just went and bought some more 3/4 inch heater hose. They had it in 6 foot lengths. I tried to just cut it because I only need about 3 foot, but they didn't have that. They only had this, so now I'll be able to cut that to whatever length that I want it to. That way when I'm running it. So let's see, what else have I done? Oh, and also I put on the other pulley here. As you can see, it kind of adjusts down. So once all this is on there and you're pushing this tensioner against the belt, I guess that kind of pushes down. Well, anyway, I mean, it's adjustable. So once we get it adjusted to where we want it, then we'll tighten this down as well. Okay, guys. So when putting in the outer bolts, the two in the back, I just dropped in there before dropping it down, and hopefully you can see that one right there. Okay, that one right there is, man, I gotta tell you, you want to talk about a summer gun. This one over here Backside, same thing. You see it right there in the back. That was a little bit easier to get to. This is on the, that was on the passenger side. Oh, well. Driver's side, sorry guys. Let me tell you what I did. I actually got it tightened down there with my fingers, just running it down first. And then once I've got it all the way down, then I was able to use a 10 millimeter with a swivel. And this is a little quarter inch drive, and was able to get it hand tight, you know. I can go back and tighten it down better here in just a little bit. But you'll notice that I put a little bit of black tape on my socket and my on my swivel, just that way I wouldn't lose it. Kind of a tight spot. They say if you've got like some kind of wobble 10 mil, I'll be honest with you, other than what I just had, I don't know what you would get down in there. I had bought this or had this impact kind of swivel. That'll never happen. Like, that ain't gonna happen. So this little one's what worked for me. Like I said, I got it finger tight. Before putting the supercharger back down in there, well, actually we put it down in there. Once I saw that, I was like, man, that ain't gonna work. So we picked it up, put it back out, dropped the 2 bolts, then sat it down in there. Easy peasy. So there again, same thing. If you're going to be running the lines, if I were you, I would go ahead, I just moved that one out of the way, but I would go ahead and have run this side. All right, I already have it hooked up. That way you're not digging down in there trying to make that happen. And then on the driver's side, it really doesn't matter. I mean, you got enough room. I've got that wire loom in the way, but that's gonna move here in a minute. I'd pull the dowel out of the way to get in there, but there'll be enough room to be able to get that on there, and then it's going to go right down here to our Y, and then that one's going to connect to our Y. We've already got the return connected in. That'll go on when we get the rest of it done. Then we'll have to create a return from right here to this side, and then that's it. So yep, okay. So that's where we're at. I wanted to point that out because that was the thing that kind of took the most time, taking it in, taking it out, you know, having a couple of people. And if you only have a hand every now and then, that, you know, like me, I had to sit around and wait a few minutes for somebody to be able to come and help me. A few minutes being like half an hour that I could have been doing other stuff. So just before you put it in, I would go ahead and run that line. I would make sure put the 2 bolts in the back. So there we go. Alright guys, so we pretty much got it all buttoned up. There really are only a few things as far as the installation of the supercharger go that's good to know, right? So one, I've already went over, which were the rear bolts in the back. Those can be a little tough, and having those already put down on the holes prior to dropping it down in there is going to make life so much easier. The Whipple instructions didn't tell you about the 2 sensors. So you got the rear and the front sensor on the old supercharger. Well, it relocates the one that was in the rear over here on the bottom side. And in the instructions, it doesn't walk you through getting that done, you know. So I had all this, you know, already hooked up, and then had to go back and take everything off and run it. It gives you basically a line to bring it around the front and be able to get it in the front there. There's a bunch of obviously hoses and stuff that you're going to cut. Most of it's all self-explanatory, so there's nothing that was in that respect a big deal. Okay, when it came to my vacuums, the vacuum on the back, wiring it out, and I teed into it, and that's what I've got hooked up to my hob switch. It's the only vacuum, so I mean, obviously that's got to be the right one. The stock hose didn't work, so we had to make one. You know, there again, all your lines you cut into and getting everything cut. I mean, it just looks a lot neater now. But dude, there's return fuel line. There's all kinds of lines up under there. But just having it all nice and neat. Taking the extra time, so once all the panels and stuff are on here, I mean, you're not going to see any of this on the back side of it, but you know, just having it all nice and neat and taking your time and getting it situated is the way to go. I've got my hob switch zip tied right here. Power wire, I have it coming through the battery box. I've already had the battery in here just to double check. We got the inline fuse, all that's going to tuck in there nice and neat. And then once the box is on there, you're not ever going to notice it. Coming up through, went into the box here, and you can see the copper top is the one that we've added. All right. I decided to do it that way versus doing it direct to the battery. Hopefully that's going to be all right. If not, we're gonna give it a try. Yeah, about the only thing that I really have left to do. Obviously you can see the wad of fuel lines there, so I'd already ran the one on the back side too, which made it helpful. Everything's really tight, so as you're putting it all together, obviously it looks worse now just because all the hoses and stuff are in there, but you know, once you got everything in there, I still probably got a couple of things I want to zip tie. Once I've got everything sitting where I want it, as you can kind of see, even the regulator I don't have completely mounted. I have it down in there, and there's a bolt hole already that I can mount this to, but we're about to do a start. I just want to check and make sure that we don't have any fuel leaks or anything like that prior to just mounting everything down. Also with the Whipple, it comes with a new air box, and I just haven't put all that together and got it fashioned in there. I just put this on there for now. About the only thing I have left to do is I need to put fluid back in it. Yeah, that's about it. Put the fluid back in it. Check my fuel filter on the bottom, just make sure that I've got all that nice and tightened back up. We will jump on the inside. I'll probably just leave a seat out while we're, just to start it. We're going to just make sure there's no leaks at the fuel hat or any of that. And then, yeah, then it's just buttoning the rest of it back up, which won't take long after that. But that's where we're at. We're going to give it a go here in just a little bit. Oh, and I haven't wired up my Hobb switch, the light that's going to go to the dash. We'll do a little separate video on that. Just so the little light will pop on once the Hobbs is triggered. If I'm going to run it that way, if for some reason it becomes a hassle, then I'll just do a jumper and we'll just run all 3 pumps all the time. But just because we're going to do some casual driving with it as well, I just thought you just put it on a Hobb switch, as long as that little light works out. That'll be nice. But that's about it, guys. I mean, not all super difficult. I would say that the Whipple instructions, are pretty good, but they still leave a lot of gaps. So one, about that sensor. So rear sensor there, the corner is going to go here, and then the one that was up front is going to go right there. But as far as difficult, you should be able to figure it out. It's taken me a little bit longer than I anticipated, and a lot of it has to do with just putting it together and taking it apart, making sure that I've got everything ran the way that I want to, and just kind of being tedious that way. But so far the build's been pretty good. So now now hopefully that when we go to fire it up, we just don't have any leaks or anything, and if we do have anything, obviously I hope it's super minor, but I feel pretty confident about everything. I've just not done a lot of these fuel lines in the past and using the AN fittings, to be quite honest with you. However, I think I've got everything tight and everything's groovy, so I don't anticipate there being any problems, but if there is, we'll work our way through it, not a big deal. So we'll pause it from here. I'm gonna get the tune in it. I've got a couple little things that I need to finish buttoning up. I need to plug back in the sensors in the rear for the fuel pumps, and that's put the battery in it. That's about it. So I got these few things that I'm going to button up, and then we'll try to see if we can't fire this thing off. All right, so we've got it all buttoned up. I think we're ready for our little initial hit. We've got everything buttoned up. I don't have the seat in. I got the tune in it, hopefully to get us started. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna set you right there on the workbench. Got my little light here so I can check out everything after hopefully it starts. Let's see what we got and what happens. So from what I can see, obviously we got a little leak right here. We'll have to figure this out. Got a little bit of a coolant leak right there. We can fix that, no problem. The smoke that was coming up front is definitely the belt, and it could be right here in this adjustment that's too tight, and it's rubbing. I can just tell like a little bit sitting there. So we will adjust on that. But other than that, everything else looked good. Didn't have any kind of fuel leaks or anything that I noticed. The little bit of burn off that we had right here was probably from this little bit of coolant leak, which is coming from one of these fittings. I can get that taken care of. And then as far as inside the car, nothing's leaking around the fuel hat, so all that looks good. So I think it's a pretty good first start. So here's what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna button up that the little leak, try to readjust this belt right quick, and then probably fire it up again and just make sure that we've solved that little problem. So, all right, I'm gonna cool off just a second, and then we'll try to button up those few things. All right, guys, I fired it up real quick, but this pulley right here is not turning at all. So, what I'm probably gonna do is create enough slack to get the belt off. And all right, guys, so per the Whipple instructions, we have the 65 millimeter pulley. There's two pulleys, right? Well, this is the smaller one, the 65 millimeter pulley. You got a step washer. Of course, the bolt goes in. You got a sliding deal that goes into this bracket for that for the pulley. And as we go over here, so there's the larger of the pulleys. Here's the one that's on the bracket, and you know, when it's tight, it's not turning. So this thing's supposed to move up and down here, right? But like I said, when this is tight, the back of the pulley is hitting the plate and won't turn. So yesterday when we started it up, as you can see here on the, I mean, it was rubbing the belt, creating a little bit of smoke because of it. So the pulley, the spacer on the back of this one and this one are the same step washers. So there's not enough clearance on the back side of that pulley with the washer that they gave me. So I've got an email into Whipple, and we'll see what they tell me about that deal. So because what I was thinking is, well, one, make sure I had the right size on each, and I do, because I mean, I measured them. Obviously you can visually tell as well. And the step washer on the back side of each of these pulleys are identical. Both of them are 0.390 per the Whipple instructions. So
couldn't have got those backwards, because if you see right here, it's the 3.9 spacer there, and then of course the other one is installed. Let's see where the other one goes on right here. So, and then this one is a 70 millimeter. All right, the other one's 65, and then you still have the same .390 step washer on the back. So, you know, there's no way for me to have gotten that backwards. And then just looking at the bracket here, there's where that it's sliding back and forth there. So we'll get that into Whipple and figure out what the deal is, and hopefully, you know, probably need to order me a new belt, just because I got that one, you know, that one was that one was rubbing a little bit last time. But of course, I didn't have it running long, as you saw in the video, but you saw some of the smoke coming from the front, and I thought it might be rubbing one of the hoses or something down there when I shut it down last night. But after looking at it closer, obviously, you know, it was the pulley that was rubbing the belt, which got it hot, which was smoking. So that's where we're at. I'll let you know what Whipple tells us here, and hopefully it's a pretty minor fix and we can move on with what we're doing. All right, so we've got a couple washers there behind the pulley. We got everything tightened back up. We're gonna fire it back up. We also went through and tightened our fittings around here, so we're gonna make sure that all that's buttoned up. Right now I still don't have this mounted. I just got it sitting in here for the time being. We're gonna get all that mounted up here in just a bit. First things first, I just want to get everything good to go before getting everything buttoned up. Let's see here. Here we go. So at the moment everything looks good. We really needed to get it up to operating temperature here. Let the thermostat open up. But everything's looking good.
quiet mode. It's normal. For the sake of sitting here in my garage, try not to upset my neighbors if I can.